Have you ever watched someone master a new skill with breathtaking speed? They pick up a guitar and are playing songs in months. They start a new language and are conversing in a year. They learn to code and build an app while you are still reading the introduction to the manual. You watch them, and a familiar, comfortable thought enters your mind. They are unnatural. They were born with a gift for this. You use this thought as a shield, a justification for your own slow, frustrating progress. You tell yourself, "I just don't have the talent for it." That is the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself. It is the lie that keeps you a beginner forever. The secret of rapid masters has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with a method. A method so powerful and so logical that it was used in feudal Japan to turn commoners into legendary swordsmen and simple artisans into masters whose work is still revered centuries later. This system bypasses the biggest obstacle to learning, your own ego. It is a three-stage path that takes you from blind imitation to true innovation. They called it shuhari. And when you understand how it works, you will stop being the person who starts 1,000 things and masters none. You will become the person who can learn anything they choose, deliberately and efficiently. But it comes with a price. This path will require you to do the one thing your ego hates the most, to admit that you know nothing. Before we unveil this system, I invite you to subscribe. Join a community that values deep learning over shallow knowledge. And in the comments, tell me, what is the one skill you would give anything to master? Now, let the lesson begin. In a remote province of Japan lived a young archer named Kenji. Kenji was obsessed with the art of the bow, kyudo. He had a dream that consumed him: to win the annual imperial archery competition. For a year, he trained relentlessly. But Kenji's training was a chaotic mess. He had read every scroll on archery he could find. He had memorized the names of 100 different techniques. He could tell you the history of every famous bowmaster. He would try a new stance one week, a new breathing technique the next, and a different style of arrow release the week after that. He had a wealth of knowledge, but his arrows were wild. They flew without consistency, sometimes hitting near the mark, more often missing it entirely. The more he practiced, the more frustrated he became. His body was a library of conflicting information, and his mind was a storm of theory. He knew about archery, but he did not know archery. His progress was stagnant. He was a master of theory and a novice of practice. His frustration finally led him to seek out the legendary Master Ozawa, a reclusive archer who was said to be able to hit a leaf in a storm. Kenji found him living in a simple hut deep in the mountains. Kenji, eager to impress, demonstrated his knowledge. He spoke of ancient techniques, of the physics of the arrow's flight, of the philosophy of the warrior's mind. When he finished, Master Ozawa, who had been listening in silence, picked up a simple child's bow. He drew the string, loosed an arrow, and it flew with perfect, silent grace into the center of a distant target. He then looked at Kenji, his eyes holding a deep, unwavering calm. "Your mind is a cluttered room," the master said, his voice quiet but firm. "You have collected 1,000 pieces of furniture, but you have no space to move. You have mistaken the menu for the meal. Before you can learn to hit the target, you must first learn to unlearn." Kenji was confused. "Unlearn? But master, I have studied for years." "And for years, you have been cementing your own mistakes," Ozawa replied. "You tried to innovate before you learned to imitate. You tried to build a house from the roof down. There is a path to mastery. It has 3 stages. You have tried to skip the first 2. This path is called Shuhari. What is this path? Kenji asked, his pride wounded. Shu, the master said. It means to obey, to protect, to follow the rule. For the next 3 months, you will forget everything you think you know. You will not read. You will not ask questions. You will not try to be creative. You will copy me perfectly. The first lesson was not at the archery range. It was in the courtyard. The master assumed a simple stance, feet planted, back straight. Stand like this. Kenji imitated him. The master walked over and adjusted his foot by a single inch. He tilted his hip by a fraction of a degree. Now, breathe. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. They stood like that for an hour, just standing, just breathing. Kenji's legs trembled. His mind screamed in protest. This is a waste of time. I should be practicing my shot. Master, he finally burst out. When will we actually shoot? Ozawa turned his head slowly. You have been shooting for a year and have learned nothing. The shot is the last part of the process, not the first. The arrow does not fly from the bow. It flies from the stance. It flies from the breath. Until the foundation is perfect, every shot you take is just practice for failure. Shu is not about learning. It is about building a body that can learn. For 3 months, Kenji's training was brutally simple. Stance, breathing, the single slow motion of raising the bow, over and over, 1,000 repetitions a day. His ego fought him every single step. It was boring. It was humiliating. But he had no choice. He had committed. Something was changing. His movements, once clumsy, became fluid. The stance, once painful, felt natural. He was no longer thinking about where to put his feet. His body simply knew. He had stopped fighting the form and had become the form. One day, after 90 days of this monotonous practice, the master led him to a windy cliffside. Today, he said, we shoot. Kenji was ecstatic. He took his stance, the perfect form now etched into his muscle memory. He drew the bow, just as he had practiced 10,000 times. He released. The arrow flew true and was swatted aside by a sudden gust of wind, missing the target completely. He tried again. The same result. He looked at his master in confusion. The form is perfect, but the wind defeats it. Good, the master said. The form I gave you was a perfect tool for a calm day. It is a cage in a storm. Now your training truly begins. This is Ha. It means to detach, to digress, to break. You have mastered the rule. Now you must learn why the rule exists, so you can learn when to break it. For the next year, Master Ozawa put Kenji in impossible situations. He had him shoot in the rain, at moving targets, from horseback, in near darkness. Every new challenge broke the perfect form he had learned. He was forced to adapt, to adjust his stance to the slippery ground, to change his breathing to match the rhythm of a moving horse. He was no longer just copying. He was problem-solving. He began to understand the principles behind the techniques. The perfect stance wasn't about the exact position of his feet. It was about creating a stable center of gravity. The perfect breath wasn't about a 4-second count. It was about creating internal calm and focus. The rules, which once felt like a prison, had become his tools. He knew them so well that he could now improvise, combining and modifying them to fit any situation. Let's stop. I know what you're thinking. But I'm a creative person. I don't like to follow rules. I learn best by finding my own way. This is the single most destructive belief for any aspiring master. It is the sophisticated lie your ego tells you to protect you from the humbling, boring, and essential work of the Shu stage. You don't want to find your own way. You want to avoid the hard work of mastering someone else's way first. Every great artist first learned to copy the masters. Every great musician first played scales for thousands of hours. Every great writer first imitated the styles of those who came before them. They understood that you cannot break the rules until you have mastered them. The modern world has sold you a toxic lie that you should go straight to self-expression, that copying is for the unoriginal, and the result is a generation of people who know a little about everything and are masters of nothing. People who want the results of mastery without paying the price of obsessive repetition. You want to skip shoe because it's not glamorous. It's humiliating to admit you know nothing and must perfectly imitate another. But until you are willing to kill your ego and become a humble copyist, you will spend your entire life being mediocre in everything you touch. Years passed. Kenji was no longer a boy, but a man whose name was whispered with respect in dojos across the province. He returned to the capital for the imperial competition. His final opponent was the undefeated champion, a man of immense technical skill. As Kenji stepped onto the platform, he did not think of stances, or breathing, or the wind. He did not think at all. This is Ri. It means to leave, to transcend. It is the final stage where you are no longer a student of the art. The art has become a part of you. You forget the techniques because they are now as natural as breathing. There is no separation between you and the tool. A neuroscientist from Kyoto University, who has studied the brains of master archers, describes it as transient hypofrontality. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for conscious thought and self-criticism, becomes dramatically less active. The skill has moved to a deeper, more intuitive part of the brain. The archer is not deciding to shoot. The shot is simply expressing itself through him. Kenji raised his bow. The world seemed to slow down. There was no target, no crowd, no champion. There was only the arrow and its inevitable path. He released the string. The arrow did not just hit the bullseye. It struck the champion's arrow, which was already in the center, and split it perfectly in two. A gasp went through the crowd. It was a legendary, impossible shot. Later, a student asked him, "Master, what technique did you use to perform such a feat?" Kenji smiled. "I used no technique at all." Kenji's journey is the universal framework for deep learning. You can apply it to anything. First, choose one skill. Do not try to learn 5 things at once. Choose the one skill that, if mastered, would change your life. Second, find your master and enter Shu. Find one source, a book, a course, a mentor, and commit to it absolutely. For the first 3 to 6 months, your only job is to copy with obsessive precision. No improvising, no questioning, no mixing methods. Swallow your ego and become a perfect mimic. Third, experiment and enter Ha. Once the fundamentals are automatic, you can begin to break the rules. Study other masters. Ask why behind the techniques. Start combining elements, experimenting with variations. This is where your understanding deepens. Fourth, let go and enter Rai. This stage cannot be forced. It comes after years of dedicated practice in Shu and Ha. It is the moment when you stop consciously trying and start intuitively doing. You will transcend the techniques, and your own unique style will finally emerge. Mastery is not about being original from day one. It's about becoming so fundamentally skilled that originality becomes inevitable. The lie of talent is a cage. The Shuhari method is the key. It is not an easy path. It is a path of humility, patience, and relentless repetition. But it is the only path that leads to true mastery. It is the reason why some people seem to learn 10 times faster, not because they are gifted, but because they are willing to start by being a humble beginner. You have the same choice. You can continue to jump from one shiny object to the next, collecting knowledge but never gaining skill. Or you can choose the ancient, tested path. The path that transforms you from someone who learns into a master. If this lesson has opened your eyes, subscribe to the TGR Flurby. It is time to stop learning and start mastering. Thank you for watching.